the outbreaks started up again with the Delta outbreaks, and so it became, firstly it was clear that the Sydney-based artists wouldn't be able to come into the state, and that was affecting 3 projects. And then it became clear that the Melbourne-based artists wouldn't be able to come in, and then it also became clear that it was too risky for the Western Australian artists to risk travelling to South Australia and being potentially shut out of their state. We had to really rethink what the event actually is about and kind of go back to the basics of Adhocracy, which has always been about supporting artists and their development of their projects. It is a real shame to not have the public event, but what I'm finding, I've just spent 5 hours with artists today, and people are having a brilliant time because they've been released from the public showings, and so they're making incredible work that they're experimenting, they're using the best use of the time, and actually finding it incredibly productive. 3 sort of themes came through this year. One of them is acts of resisting, looking at ideas around non-violent action, direct action, histories of activism.
My name is Manal Yunus, and I'm collaborating with 3 people, artists and activists. We are working on a project called Adhocracy. We're starting off with poetry as the main art form, but that being said, we're really open to just exploring where it goes and seeing what other forms of oral storytelling we can use. My relationship with poetry is quite deep. That's my main artistic practice, so both writing and performance poetry. Out of the rest of the crew involved, there's only one person there who actually really does poetry. Everybody else uses other forms of art, so we want to see how we can bring them together. The other main art form is sound. So Nelia Valamanesh is a DJ and does great sound work. At this stage, I would love it to just be oral storytelling with sound, and I'd love to develop it further. It might be with characters, it might be individual monologues, it might be a play in the future. It will become whatever it needs to in order to say what we need to say, once we work out what we actually need to say.
My project is Elegy of the Pale Lion. Last year I purchased a Holden chassis that I started stripping and working on for the development that we could do with the dancers. So this, during Adhocracy, is the first time that we've got the dancers in a space and opportunity to work and play with the car. So I work in sculpture and performance. The main method of me making is usually through mold making and casting. Then I kind of create sort of assemblages by adding things together, and so it's still predominantly casting, but with assemblages on that. One of the things about our project is that it is considered a burial ritual for a Holden Commodore, which means that after the ritual has been performed, the car gets destroyed.
The second theme was acts of caring. There was a number of projects that were looking at care as an artistic practice, how to kind of rebuild, how to build a home and a community.
I'm Fleur Kilpatrick, and I'm working with Nisha Jelk and Meg Wilson on my new play, How to Build a Home. This work is all about how you build space and create space and a sense of home and community out of nothing. So it's kind of like starting from scratch in this new space to do it as well. We're there in this kind of empty canvas of a building and going, how do we create a community? How do we create space out of this?
We've been discussing what does a home mean? We've been talking about what is Fleur's experiences of this new spot of land in Auburn that she's purchased and has been turning into a home, and also what a home even means. We've been talking about biodiversity and soil. I've been learning a lot about soil and the billions of microbes that live in soil and how important soil is for our climate.
The third theme was acts of remembering, grief, through to acts of political remembering, through to ideas around extinction, this notion that we're in some kind of post-truth era, how we actually kind of resist that and remember our histories and how we actually strive for truth.
My name is Astrid Pill, and our project is called Till Death. That's a working title. I was feeling quite overwhelmed by all of the terrible things that are going on in the world, and I was sort of thinking, how can I be exploring these stories at this point? It feels a bit self-indulgent, and Zoe pointed out that, the overarching theme is grief, even though we're exploring specific type of grief. She was sort of saying it's still this emotion and state that you can, people can understand it in different ways and apply it to different things that are going on. It's not just about someone whose partner dies. I think it's about the way that people manage themselves, their personal grief, but also their universal grief, the bigger picture grief, yeah. We were all feeling pretty down in the dumps recently before we tuned in with each other, and we met on Zoom, and then by the end of the Zoom session, we were all like, oh, yes, and this is what we're going to do next, and it was all very exciting.
My name is Monty Marzi, and I'm collaborating with Amira H on a project called Goddess Balls Funhouse. The project is a lot about online encounter and how we find intimacy in online spaces. The fact that one of us is in Melbourne and one of us is in Adelaide does kind of work for this project in the sense that we already have a relationship to the screen and the webcam inbuilt into the project, so having to sort of see Amira through a tiny screen has suited us thematically, but it also, the project wants to draw both me and Amira into, I think, a conversation about how we communicate online with each other, online sex work, what's the kind of language that people use in kind of camming sites. And I think we've been able to do that in a way that maybe if we'd been here face to face with each other, we wouldn't have necessarily.
One of the things about the pandemic is it's opened up this kind of ability for people to actually think much more radically. Arundhati Roy talks about the portal, like what do we want to take through this moment in time, or what do we want to leave behind? And so I think that there's a lot of potential for really fantastic, visionary action. I think the same is true for the arts sector. Hopefully that will lead to some changes in the way that our sector operates. I think there's a lot of potential for new leadership in our sector, and there's a sense that is a priority.